Rob saying goodbye.
Hello, my name is Michael and I come to High Oakham Primary School, and my daddy is a police officer and I like it when Joe Wicks is Scooby-Doo. Hi, my name is Lucy. Hi, my name is William and we go to High Oakham Primary School. And I like playing with the marbles one. I like playing on the field with my friends. And my daddy works at the police. My mummy is a teacher.
I am Joshua and I go to High Oakham Primary School and my dad is a key worker and my mum works for Boots and I love the field. Whoa.
Hello, I'm Charlotte and my parents both work for Nottinghamshire Police. My favourite thing that I've done at school so far is rounders.
Hi, I'm Leo and my mummy and daddy work for the ambulance service as paramedics. They take people to A&E when they've had an accident. I have been at school recently and my favourite thing has been weaving Eye of God. Here's a picture. That's all from me, and this message is to say stay home, stay safe.
Hi, my name is Ethan and this is my brother Johnson. My mum and dad work for the key workers of police force. Our favourite thing at High Oakham Primary School is rounders.
Thank you, County Council, for keeping us safe.
To all the key workers who are working during this pandemic. Thank you, Mum and Dad and the school. My favourite thing is so I can play with my friends. Me. Thank you for Miss Lowe and thank you for Miss Smith. And you had lots of fun with belly dancing and painting rocks.
Thank you for keeping our school open. Mr. Bancroft and the cleaners are all fab. I'll have a lot of special memories here.
Thank you to Mrs. Thompson, Mrs. Pye, Mrs. Sheila, Mrs. Kayla. We've been painting, we've had ice cream, we've been outside and we've even had Easter eggs.
Thank you for letting us in the school while my mummy cooks the dinners. We made fairy gardens and we played on the bikes and the teacher made it lots of fun and we made lots of new clothes. My mummy and daddy work for the NHS. My mummy and daddy work for the NHS. My mum and dad work for the NHS. Our mum and dad work for the NHS. My mum and dad are on the front line risking their own lives. We want you to stay at home to help save lives. We want to protect our family and would like you to protect yours. This virus can kill anybody. You may not have symptoms, but you could still be spreading the virus. It's important to stay at home and help save lives.
My son Josh recently turned 2. After we moved to the area, I needed to find a new nursery for him. A colleague mentioned that the Notts Help Yourself website had a list of approved childcare providers. The site was easy to navigate and I was able to filter the search to my local area. Notts Help Yourself was intuitive to use and offered me a wide variety of options. The site gave me access to a whole host of opportunities and provided me with a wealth of useful information. It was brilliant to see Josh settling in so well on his first day. I'm happy knowing he's well looked after.
That's great, thank you.
Thank you. Good morning and welcome to the Policy Committee meeting on Wednesday the 15th of July. We have a few items on the agenda today, which I should like to again to get through with everyone making a comfortable debate out of it, because there's some interesting items here and investing in our county as well. So first item on the agenda is the minutes of the meeting that were held on the 17th of June. Can I take that they are a true and correct record?
Yeah.
And I'll take silence as an assent on this. Is there anyone who doesn't agree with that? Thank you. Second item on the agenda is apologies for absence. Do I have any apologies for absence, please?
Chair, I can confirm that we've had apologies from Councillor Bruce Lawton and John Peck, and we have Councillors Kevin Rostons and Liz Plant substituting for them today. We've also been informed of 2 permanent changes to the membership, with Councillors David Martin and Rachel Madden replacing Councillors Jason Zadrozny and Samantha Deegan. Thank you.
Thank you. And the third item is declarations of interest. Are there any members or officers that have a disposable pecuniary interest or a private interest that's either pecuniary or not?
Councillor Barnfather.
Councillor Barnfather.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Item 8, investing in Nottinghamshire Top Wigay update. I have a non-pecuniary interest as a member of Gedling Borough Planning Committee, and the planning application will be determined by that committee later this year.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? No, thank you. Then we'll move on to item 4 then. This is the expansion of the South Nottinghamshire Academy. It seeks in principle to approve an increase in the capacity of the South Nottinghamshire Academy by a one-form entry and the allocation of basic needs funding to enable detailed analysis and site surveys and feasibility work to ensure the delivery and the estimated cost. And the report outlines the issues of pupil place numbers in the Rushcliffe East secondary planning area and highlights a shortfall of secondary places in Radcliffe-on-Trent over the next 10 years. This is an area of significant housing building. It's going on presently, and it's planned also for further housing. And in order for the pupils to be retained in the catchment area, the expansion of the South Nottinghamshire Academy is necessary. So I'm going to propose that today, and I'd like a seconder, please. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, Leader, I'm happy to second this agenda item, and it is really a good news story. I know it's about a building programme, if you like, but it is a good news story because for a long time, South Nottinghamshire College, or South Nottinghamshire Academy rather, was not one of our highest performing academies, shall we say. But since the Redhill Trust have taken it over, the reputation of the academy has increased dramatically, to an extent that parents now actively want to send their children to this school rather than send them away from it. And that's why we have the report in front of us this morning, because basically there is a shortage of places there at the school. You will see in paragraph 5 that this September they are proposing to admit 150 children, because that is 30 above the existing pan, and that's because parents want to send their children to that school. That is good news in itself and shows that the school is improving, but it also helps in the wider area, because parents who didn't want to send their children to South Notts Academy were trying to opt for places like West Bridgford and Rushcliffe and Toot Hill at Bingham, which put increasing pressure on their numbers. So I commend this report to members of the Policy Committee, and I commend the progress that's been made by the Redhill Academy Trust in improving standards in South Nottinghamshire Academy. And I think we can safely say that's another school off our tick list for improvement. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. Richard Butler.
Thank you, Leader. Well, for many years, when it was Dane Court School, before it became an academy, the school was the main secondary school for Cotgrave children, and it was popular then. But then, as Councillor Owen has said, perhaps a few years ago, things weren't quite as good as they could have been, and so what we found was a lot of Cotgrave families were choosing or wanting to go to schools such as South Wolds in Keyworth. So to have an improvement in South Notts Academy is to be welcomed. Obviously, not so very long ago, a couple of years ago, it had a rebuild, and so the premises themselves are very good as they are now. So and with the performance and the results showing an improvement too, this is good news for the academy. It's good news for the Radcliffe children, but also it's good news for the Cotgrave children, both those who go there now, but of course those who will be joining in future years. The other thing, of course, is there's reference to house building, and the paragraph 8 refers to the increased house building in Bingham in particular, but of course we've had it in Cotgrave as well, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if over the next few years there are more to come. So that is good forward thinking to allow for the capacity for families to go to the South Notts Academy. And then finally, getting there, of course, the County Council has got to be involved and fund the transport and buses to get there. But of course, we have, especially in the finer, nicer weather, we have good, believe it or not, cycling links between Cotgrave and Radcliffe, with a cycle track and pathway already in place along the main access between the two villages. So as we're all supposed to be encouraging people to use their cycles more, then it would be nice to think that when appropriate, that will come into actual proper use. And on a slightly lighter note, and I know this probably isn't so practical, but of course last year we opened up the off-route or the off-road green route between Cotgrave and Radcliffe as well on the old mineral line, and that's very popular. But I suspect school uniforms wouldn't work so well on that track. But sorry, I'm going on a bit. But really, this is to be welcomed. It's good investment. The school is good, and this I think will help improve matters in life for everyone.
Thank you. Liz, we've got your hand up. Liz Plant. Hello there. You're muted, Liz. You're still muted.
I'm now muted. Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah,
I can hear you now. Yes. Yeah.
Yes, obviously, fully support all that has been said. I mean, and it is the case that it wasn't always the most most popular school in terms of the catchment area, and that's obviously changed. And that's really good news. I mean, the need for the expansion is there now, and obviously particularly with the 400 planned houses going forward. So that's good. I think, I mean, by secondary standards, it is a small school. So also having the expansion of the one form entry, 150 more pupils means more teachers, and that will certainly add to the expansion and delivery of the curriculum, which is also good news for the pupils there. So yeah, fully support the recommendations. I'm just wanted a bit of clarification. So presumably this will be funded by the Section 106 monies, which will come from the Shelford housing. But on paragraph 16, it says the cost of the expansion is expected to be minimal, and the Red Hill Trust would be responsible should the project go over budget. So, I mean, obviously, this is a feasibility stage. We don't know what the actual cost will be, but that sounds, so would all of that, is all that Section 06 money going to the South Notts Academy?
Well, the funding we're asking for today is only £25,000 for the analysis of the site. Is there anybody who can tell me about the long-term funding of this?
Leader, it's Derek Higton.
No, hello there, yes.
Just to provide a little bit of clarity, yes, at the moment we don't, because we're seeking funding today to secure monies to undertake a piece of feasibility work to identify exactly what the cost will be. It's difficult to tell at this point whether we'll be able to use all of the Section 106 monies that may be available, whether that will cover the entire cost of the development. If it doesn't, then we'll utilise the capital funding monies that we get from the DFE as a council to support basic need, because this represents a basic need project. So that we'll know more about this once the feasibility work, in terms of the cost, once the feasibility work has been undertaken. And at that point, we'll come back to committee for final approval of the funding agreement between the Academy Trust and the County Council, and that will identify the exact costs of the project and also the precise funding sources, which, if it's not 106 entirely, will be a combination of Section 106 monies and the Council's capital basic need allocation.
Thank you. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
Mike Pringle next with your hand up, Mike.
Thank you, Leader, and Derek has covered the majority of what I was going to ask with regards to funding and where it would be clarified from. I think we recognise that we're probably entering a time of complete change. So the vision of development and school development, certainly for our pupils, I suggest that we need to look at it a long way. You said there'd been a decade of effort from the school previously, and Councillor Butler and Councillor Owen recognised the development of the school from poor into what is now good. I find it sometimes strange that we refer back to, after only what will be 2 terms, a school position which should have included a development plan, because we all see housing plans that are extended locally through district and borough councils for a long time. It would be nice to recognise some joined up writing, in particular for the schools, and our right list in particular for the schools, because it is the children that are affected. And perhaps then we wouldn't be sending or expecting children to move from one school to another, and the school could concentrate on being good all the time and not just periodically. So I would like to see at some point some sort of longer term understanding of the development of any school that we put forward in relationship to the expansion of the housing estates that we know we're all going to get locally around us. Thank you, Lydia.
Thank you. Anybody else want to say anything about this? No, well, can I say, Mike, that I was a governor of that school for very many years before it became an academy, and we never managed to achieve the ambition of the governors there, which was a great shame. As a consequence, people did send their children to other schools in the area, and of course that has a knock-on effect for traffic and transport. But expanding this school is also going to have a knock-on effect for traffic and transport, because the children in Cotgrave, well, they can get there along quite a lengthy walk. Part of the village would be outside the catchment for walking, so we'd have to think about cars and buses. Now, Cropwell Road actually serves 3 schools in that area. It's also the main road to the A52 where the traffic lights are after the village, and therefore we shall have to think creatively, in my view, as to how we get children to school. And it may be we should be asking parents to drop children off not so close to the school entrance, because of course when you get to secondary school age you're quite capable of walking a little way to school. So there are some plans here, and I know the local community are somewhat concerned about the amount of traffic on that road. And well, I don't think there's a councillor alive who doesn't know all about when people are dropping children off at school and the chaos and mayhem there can be at either end of the day. So this is no different to that, but we shall try and come up with something creative. Right, I'm now going to put it to the vote. So all of you in favour, I'm going to ask the Chief Executive to call a register so we can be sure that we have a proper record of which way you're going to vote. So I'm now going to hand you over to the Chief Executive.
Thank you very much, Chairman. So I'm going to ask members to say how they vote. It's not the same as a recorded vote, but you might recall at the last Policy Committee meeting, my mathematics defeated me. So in these virtual meetings, I think for the sake of clarity, it's better if we ask members to say aloud how they're going to vote. So in this order then, please, Councillor Adair.
For.
Councillor Barnfather.
For.
Councillor Butler.
For.
Councillor Cotty.
For.
Councillor Cutts. Councillor Fole.
For.
Councillor Garner.
For.
Councillor Guilfoyle. Councillor Guilfoyle.
For. Sorry, I was muted.
Councillor Harper.
For.
Councillor Jackson.
For.
Councillor Knight.
For.
Councillor Madden.
For.
Councillor Martin.
For.
Councillor Owen.
For.
Councillor Plant.
For.
Councillor Pringle.
For.
Councillor Rhodes.
For.
Councillor Rostance.
For.
Councillor Vice.
For.
Thank you. That's carried.
That was a unanimous vote in favour of the £25,000 for the feasibility study for the Dane Court School, for goodness me, I'm slipping back into the past, for the South Notts Academy. Thank you very much. I'm now going to move on to agenda item 5. This is a schools building improvement programme and the latest estimated costs for that. It's set out in the papers before you today, and if you look on the yellow pages, there it is in detail of where we intend to spend this money to be spent. This is a significant investment in our schools for those works which are necessary to bring them up to a proper modern standard. So this isn't so much about education, it's making a school building fit for purpose. So I'm going to introduce that item myself and ask, do I have a seconder, please?
I'll second the proposal and motion to reserve my right to speak.
Thank you very much. Do I have any speakers? Councillor Owen.
Yes, thank you, Leader. This is what is usually an annual report to Children and Young People Services Committee, whereby we look at the priorities for the forthcoming year to determine where we need to spend money. And this is part of an ongoing programme. You'll see this year we're asking to commit £3.5 million. The work streams are set out in the report, but often it is a case of having to replace antiquated boilers and antiquated heating systems. You'll see under the boiler and heating pipework replacement, that pipework replacement predominantly affects Victorian pipework. I suppose it's on the one hand amazing that we've still got Victorian pipework in some of our schools, but at least it shows how well the Victorians built things when they did build them, perhaps lessons that we need to be learning today. But you say it's not really an education matter, but it is, because you can't really learn if you're sitting in the freezing cold or if you're sitting under a roof that is leaking and expect to get the best from children. So it is important that we do these works and that we have an ongoing maintenance programme. I would hate to be in a position where we found ourselves in 2009, where we needed to invest £100 million over 4 years to make many schools fit for purpose. So I commend this particular report to members of the Policy Committee and hope that they will agree, because it's investing in our young people yet again. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. I have the next hand up is Muriel and then Kate.
Thank you, Leader. I think my question applies to both agenda item 5 and agenda item 6. I'm just wondering, are there separate programmes of improvement and maintenance arising from the needs of the COVID epidemic? of any changes that need to be made?
Derek, are you in the room still? Can you answer that question?
Certainly, Leader. Thank you for the question, Councillor Vice. The programmes identified in this agenda item and the next agenda item were prepared kind of in advance, if you like, of the current coronavirus crisis. So at the moment, we're not anticipating any significant permanent changes to the school estate that are going to be required as a result of COVID. But if that does become an issue for us and for schools, then that's something that we'll obviously need to turn our attention to. Likewise, in terms of county office buildings, we're currently undergoing a significant programme of work to ready the buildings for potential reoccupation. But all of that work really involves cosmetic and temporary building related work and activities rather than anything more substantial and permanent.
Thank you. You satisfied with that answer, Muriel? Thank you. All right, I now have Kate's hand up. Kate.
Oh, thank you, Leader. A similar kind of approach to what Muriel's just said, and this applies to both items 5 and 6. When I see that the Youth and Community Centre in Beeston is listed around the problems with flooding in 6, and John Clifford, which was very badly flooded in the recent floods in Beeston and kind of more broadly in Broxtowe. And I noticed issues causing flooding is actually listed in the report. And I know that a couple of weeks ago when this really bad flooding happened, right the way across my division, and I think beyond in Broxtowe, it was residents, businesses, schools, a lot of different sites in different places. Some of it was caused by the occasional blocked drain, but as I understand it, some of it was a bit more complicated than that. It was campers in the road and conversations, more technical stuff that probably I don't understand. So my question is similar to Muriel's in that does the listing and the programme in both 5 and 6 on this report, does it take account of these recent flooding incidents to make sure that they really don't happen again? Because certainly John Clifford, it was pretty awful. As I say, some of my residents were quite badly affected. Thank you.
I hope they do indeed. Can I ask that question to answer it, please?
Certainly. The short answer, Councillor Fowle, is yes, we will absolutely take into account in a site like John Clifford, where we've had significant kind of maintenance issues over the last couple of years because of the age of the and complexity of the site. It will absolutely be taken into account the recent experience, and of course the school leaders will be wanting us to do that as well, to ensure that we can, as best we can, future-proof the site.
I mean, to over £500,000, that's a substantial amount of money, isn't it, that we need to address that with. These floods are very expensive. Right, I've got Richard Jackson now, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Welcome the report, and particularly welcome in Appendix 1 replacement of boiler and external canopy at what I would call College House School, Cater Lane. It's now the Lanes Primary. It's a great school. It was 40 years ago when I attended. And it still is. And I remember at the time it had a coal-fired boiler, and there used to be a caretaker who seemed to spend the entire day shoveling coals. So I don't think that's still there, but I'm sure a new boiler will make the school even better.
Thank you. Steve Garner.
Thank you. I welcome this report. It's always handy to keep your properties in repair. And I welcome the Oakham Primary is having about 10% of the spend, so it's all good news, and 3.6 million from our coffers into our properties, so it's just a great news story. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, and I think it's quite right. We keep investing in our schools and replacing things. You know, I do remember when I went to school, we had those pot-bellied boilers. You filled up from the top with a coal scuttle. So time does move on. Mike Pringle.
Thanks, Leader. Just going to the Morn Infant School. Really support the change from gas to electric for obvious reasons. I wondered if the supply of electric had included the school itself. So I've not seen anything from the school, and them actually producing any of their own power supply for the changes at all.
You mean solar panels and such things? Yes.
Yeah, yes, Leader, yeah.
That is our intention, that most of the buildings in Nottingham should have solar panels on wherever we can. Of course, schools are a separate category. Do you have anything to add on that, on solar panels and generating their own electricity?
Certainly, as far as the specifics for that school are concerned, Councillor Pringle, I'll get colleagues to provide you with an update on the detailed of the scheme. On a wider front, certainly in terms of school kitchens, we are trying to move completely away from gas towards electricity for both cost reasons and also for environmental reasons, because of course it's a move away from carbon at that point, and that forms part of what is developing into a much longer term strategy to, if you like, kind of decarbonise our school estate in terms of property and premises. But there are obvious constraints that we face there in terms of our ability to make significant changes to very old buildings in many cases. So it's going to have to be much more of an incremental approach over the coming significant number of years to get to the point where we've got a kind of green schools estate, if you like. But certainly solar panels will form part of that. A move away from coal-fired boilers obviously forms part of that as well. And we'll be driven both by our own ambitions, but also by legislation, which of course is continuing to evolve and driving schools and ourselves into further change.
I think you do raise a very important point there, because we have these great areas of roof over schools, often flat surfaces, which probably lend themselves quite easily to having a solar panel put on if it's elevated in the right way. And if that's a way we can generate electricity more cheaply, then I think we're all for it. And it's better to have it that, in my view, than putting up wind farms where you can do it a different way. So I think we all welcome that, Mike. So thank you for bringing that matter up. Do we have any other speakers, please? Liz Plant. Councillor Plant.
Yeah, from there. Just in terms of decarbonising, or trying to obviously decarbonise not just our school estate, but obviously all our buildings. But we are at the moment, obviously, again, replacing the boilers with gas boilers at the moment. I mean, we gave up with the biomass ones, didn't we, which were disastrous, and we've sort of removed those. Yeah. So at the moment, we're still replacing boilers with a gas boiler. So what would you say the average life of a gas boiler is?
I mean, I don't know what the average life is, but I know the government are committed to actually phasing out gas boilers in the near future. So, Derek, do you have any comments on that? And do we have any alternatives?
So certainly the average life of a gas boiler in manufacturing terms is usually between 25 to 30 years. Obviously, they last significantly longer than that if effectively and properly maintained. And of course, unfortunately, because of the limitations of the school estate that we have in Nottinghamshire, but so does everywhere else in the country have, we can't kind of make one giant leap away from carbon fuel or carbon-based fuels on all of our sites, even as we go through a boiler replacement programme for all kinds of technical and engineering reasons. However, our long-term ambition is that we decarbonise the school estate, and certainly for other new schools that we are building, and wherever we get the opportunity, we aren't installing we're not installing gas boilers. So the new schools that we're building all have electric-based heating systems.
So let's hope we speed the programme up in that area then, Derek. Do I have any other speakers, please? No? Right, well, Reg, would you like to say anything as you reserve the right to speak?
Yeah, well, I think this is a good news story. I can remember about 10 years ago going into some of our primary schools and the head teacher saying, I've got my buckets here to collect the water from the roof, and then going into another school and the poor children huddled in the corner because the heating system had broke down. So I think we don't want to be repeating those exercises. So I think this is a programme, a continuous programme of improvement to prevent the standards that we sort of feel, and as Philip just alluded to, we had to spend 100 million then, that's 10 years ago, and now hopefully this is going to keep us up to speed and keep us properly roofed, without roofs without leaks and schools with heating and children need it so they can get to school and enjoy their day at school. So it's well spent money.
Thank you. Well, I think this is going to be welcomed by all councillors for the schools in their divisions, and I'm now going to put it to the vote. I shall ask the Chief Executive to call the register, which seems appropriate since we're on this item. Chief Executive.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Councillor Adair.
4.
Councillor Barnfather.
4.
Councillor Butler.
4.
Councillor Cotty.
4.
Councillor Cutts.
4.
Councillor Fole.
4.
Councillor Garner.
4.
Councillor Guilfoyle.
Oh my.
Councillor Harper.
4.
Councillor Jackson.
4.
Councillor Knight. Councillor John Knight.
Sorry, Chair. 4.
Councillor Madden.
4.
Councillor Martin.
4.
Councillor Owen.
4.
Councillor Plant.
4.
Councillor Pringle.
4.
Councillor Rhodes.
4.
Councillor Rostance.
4.
And Councillor Vice.
4.
Thank you, colleagues.
Councillor Guilfoyle votes in favour. I'm sorry, my button is sticking.
It's okay, Glenn, I got it. Thank you very much. That's carried, Leader.
I'm not sure if you're aware, Mrs. Cutts, I think you're just muted at the moment.
I'm sorry, I switched my microphone off because it echoes on the Chief Executives, and I'm sorry, I've forgotten to switch it on, so I'll start again. We come to item 6 now. It's the Property Planned Maintenance Programme, the latest estimated costs. And you'll see in the yellow pages attached to the agenda that we are setting out across the 4 sites where the work will be carried out. The Council is committed to provide safe and compliant and fit purpose for buildings for staff, visitors and for service users. And the Property Planned Maintenance Programme is a key programme for delivering this commitment. In other words, we have to have our buildings fit for purpose. And of course, we have had extra expenditure upon our buildings to make them compliant with the social distancing rules that we have and keeping our staff safe. So I'm going to ask, do I have a seconder for this, please?
Yes, a second that and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you very much. And the matter is now open for debate. Councillor Owen. Philip.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I draw attention in Appendix 1 to 2 sections. One section on the first page where you can see the huge amount of investment that we're going to be putting into our environmental education centres, the 3 centres there, which form an important part of the school curriculum for residential visits and also for environmental education. Yeah. And I think it's excellent that we can continue to invest in these and provide an enrichment to the curriculum for our young people. And I think it's particularly important for those children that come from more disadvantaged backgrounds who may not get as many opportunities as those from other areas to experience the sort of activities that go on in our environmental education centres. So I think it's an investment in the future, which can also be said going to page 3 of the appendix, where we are investing considerable sums of money in our youth and community centres. I think it's a very important statement of the priorities of this administration that we want to invest in our youth work. Many local authorities, as you know, Leader, have either completely closed their youth provision or seriously reduced it. I think this is a very positive statement for the future of the young people in Nottinghamshire, and long may we be able to continue this sort of investment and support for our young people. So I have no hesitation in recommending the, in supporting the recommendations as outlined in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Glyn Guilfoyle and then Mike Pringle. So Glyn.
Yes, Chair, just in relation to one item on the Appendix 1, it's the Retford bus station. And I note that it does talk about refurbishment and upgrade, and it just seems that, I mean, it's not that long since it was built, so I just wondered what the particular problem was at the bus station, why it's needing such a lot of money at this particular point in time.
Yeah. Can you answer that question for me? Derek, are you still in the room? You're muted, Derek. You're muted.
Apologies. It had to happen at least once, didn't it? Thank you for the question. I'll have to just double check, Councillor Guilford, but I expect that the expenditure is required because of the nature of use of those kinds of facilities in bus stations. They get very heavy use and in many cases kind of abuse as well by the public. So I would imagine that the refurbishment is required to bring them up to an acceptable, back up to an acceptable and appropriate standard. Because as you say, overall, the facility there is very new. But I'll double check that with colleagues and we'll give you the detail.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Pringle then.
Thank you, Leila. Just to recognise the amount of investment in the Ollerton Library. It's only short time since we went down from 2 to the 1 library, and I'm very keen to push that through chairing the SFEP, and we have our co-club there every Saturday, and we have historical groups from the rural areas using that. So I recognise the effort in the changes that are going to be made, or the developments that are going to be made. Can I ask, is the internet system going to be upgraded? I have asked Peter, but he's not got back to me yet. There is issues with the server at the library, and has that included any of this at all?
Well, I would hope it would be, because I think the internet is really a recognised part of our library service nowadays. So, Derek, can I pose that question to you?
Certainly, I think the short answer, Councillor Pringle, is yes. We'll absolutely be looking to improve the IT facilities.
There you are.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Alan Rhodes.
Thanks, Leader. I wasn't sure whether my hand raised sign was up or not, but you.
I'll make a list as well.
Yeah, he put my mind at ease. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't miss the opportunity to agree with Philip. It's a rare occasion, but I will do. I'm absolutely delighted to see the additional investment in St Michael's, Hag Farm and Pearlthorpe. I think they are 3 fantastic services that we offer. Whilst we know that they're fantastic services, because they're out and about, they're often overlooked by us. And I do hope that in the fullness of time, when the new improvements have been made there, that we can once again have a visit and see for ourselves how much children and young people are enjoying these facilities, and remind ourselves what a fantastic service we offer from St Michael's, Hag Farm and Pearlthorpe.
I think that's a very good suggestion. I'm going to ask that we do keep that in mind, Philip, and we do organise, when it's safe to do so, a visit for members to look at these outdoor facilities and also the indoor facilities as well. It's really important that we do, as members, understand exactly what we are doing with these premises. This is about money, of course, but the whole thing's about children and education, isn't it?
Indeed.
I've got Tony Harper next. Tony.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I just wanted to say how pleased I was to see Broxtowe Day Services having the windows replaced. I was there just before lockdown and they were in a poor state, and I'm really pleased that they're on the list, so thank you.
Thank you. And Steve Garner.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to, well, actually, Alan's finished a bit of me spiel about the Ag Farm and places like that, so I'll not go into that, but I do welcome probably 50% of the money is being spent in Mansfield, which is great. Meadow House and trading standards, which, okay, that's not in my area, but yes, I welcome it all. There again, another 5.5 million spent, lots of taxpayers' money, and refurbishing our equipment. So, you know, it's just another good news story. Thank you.
I think that's very welcome that all members feel that we should invest in the future for our buildings across the county. Right, I've got Liz now, Liz Plant.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to say, obviously, I certainly echo the investment in the environmental centres. I mean, in terms of my teaching career, it was the highlight of many of my pupils' yearly visits there, and each and every one of them was and is a fantastic experience. But I just wanted to I couldn't resist really in the fact that he might be listening somewhere, wherever that might be, maybe. But I think if we go back, it was Fred Riddell, who was one of Councillor Owen's predecessors of many years, who actually, it was his vision and his ambition to actually set up those centres. I was obviously, again, thinking in terms of disadvantaged pupils who really never had the opportunity to actually get out into the countryside. So I just think it's worth remembering that.
Thank you very much. I remember Fred very well. Thank you for your reminder. David Martin. Morning, David, and welcome to the committee.
Morning, thank you, Chair. Yes, I welcome the sentiments of the other councillors about the investment programme, and I think it's a great thing that we are having a proactive plan going forwards, and I just hope that the benefits that it brings will be shared equally across the county, and I think it's a great programme. It's a lot of investment, and it's in education and libraries, and it's a great thing. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Do I have any more speakers, please? Reg, you reserve the right to speak. I don't have any more speakers. Would you like to use your right?
Yeah, I'll just use my right again. As both papers means that capital expenditure on maintenance, we're spending 9 million going forward, and that's got to be good for the Notts pound, as we say, because it's Nottingham capital spent in Nottingham, and especially coming out of COVID, that's got to be good news. But also it does focus on children's centres, and it does focus on youth centres as well as other educational centres, so that Joe public out there can see that we're right behind the youth centres and children's centres and those things in the appropriate places. So because we're investing in them, and I think this is a good show of investment around for maintenance factors alone, so that we have not just children's centres, youth centres, but quality children's centres and quality youth centres where children can go and young people can go and be safe. So I sort of support the motion and make sure that we drive this investment through now for the future, and also have this ongoing programme going forward as far as the council is concerned.
Well, I think you speak for all members when you say that. I think all members welcome the investment in young people and education in our county. Young people are the future, and we must never neglect them. And old people deserve the best we can afford to give them in day centres, because that's somewhere special for a day out for them. And it was lovely to hear, Liz, on your teaching experience, how much the children enjoy this. This was the highlight of the career. Slightly teasing, I hope this wasn't a reflection upon your teaching at all, but I'm sure it was meant to be just a contribution to the programme. So I'm going to ask now for a vote. I'm going to ask the Chief Executive to carry this out. So Chief Executive, would you call the vote, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Adair.
For.
Councillor Barnfather.
For.
Councillor Butler.
For.
Councillor Cotty.
For.
Councillor Cutts.
For.
Councillor Fole.
For.
Councillor Garner.
For.
Councillor Guilfoyle.
For.
Councillor Harper.
For.
Councillor Jackson.
For.
Councillor Knight.
For.
Councillor Madden.
For.
Councillor Martin.
For.
Councillor Owen.
For.
Councillor Plant.
For.
Councillor Pringle.
For.
Councillor Rhodes.
For.
Councillor Roston.
For.
And Councillor Vice.
For.
Thank you, Chair. That's carried.
Thank you very much. That's unanimously in favour of it. No offence, Liz. Thank you. Right, let's move on then to agenda item 7. This is compensation for acquisition of land at High Street, Hucknall, and the Hucknall Town Centre improvement schemes. And it's a very long story, this. It started in October 2012, according to the papers, and we're still sorting the properties out there. I hope we are getting to the bottom of these, because it has been, as I say, a very long story. A much needed road, a much needed improvement to the Hucknall Town Centre, especially I think today when more people are walking to town, but it has taken a long time to get here. So do I have a seconder for this, please?
I'll second the motion and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you very much. And it's now open for debate, members. Kevin, do you have your hand up? Yes, you do. Is your bar not working?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. It has been a long, drawn-out process. Hopefully, now we've got new people in place in the property department. We can finally see a complete end to this and get the surrounding areas tidied up as well as. But yeah, I'm pleased to see an end in sight. So yeah, I support this, and it's a shame it couldn't be done earlier. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Tony Harper.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I've got a longer story because I can see the house I was born and bred in on the map. All my family mostly live in that area as well, and I just wanted to say what a big improvement it was to that area and to the people who live in the area and shoppers. It's made a fantastic difference. People were a bit cool to it when it first started and the planning, but now it's settled down. People wouldn't have it any different. So thank you.
Thank you. And you can see on the yellow pages attached to it, it's the appendix where exactly we're speaking about, if anyone's not quite sure. Do I have any other speakers, please? No. Reg, would you like to say anything as you?
No, nothing further to add.
Yeah. Well, we should come to the business part of this paper in the exempt appendix, because that is a metaphor that's it's better to discuss that in private rather than in public, as it is identifying people. So I'm now going to put this to the vote and ask the Chief Executive to call the vote. Chief Executive.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Adair.
4.
Councillor Barnfather.
4.
Councillor Butler.
4.
Councillor Cotty.
4.
Councillor Cutts.
4.
Councillor Fole.
4.
Councillor Garner.
4.
Councillor Guilfoyle.
4.
Councillor Harper.
4.
Councillor Jackson.
4.
Councillor Knight.
4.
Councillor Madden.
4.
Councillor Martin.
4.
Councillor Owen.
4.
Councillor Plant.
4.
Councillor Pringle.
4.
Councillor Rhodes.
4.
Councillor Rostance.
4.
And Councillor Vice.
4.
That's carried, Leader.
Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Thank you, members. We'll now move on to agenda item 8, which is investing in Nottinghamshire. It's the top Wickhay farm. This brief covers the highway infrastructure, outline planning application, development selection progress, and additional grant funding, and members should consider if any further information is required. The report also seeks approval for a grant for an easement and relevant contracts over third-party land, and this is covered in more detail in the exempt appendix to this report. I welcome the news that this work is underway to help the County Council help the county move the economic recovery to post-COVID-19, and work to construct the new infrastructure has now started on site for our new flagship village, thanks to the council working closely with ARC, our arms length company, and contractors Balfour Beatty, who are strictly adhering to COVID-19 site operating procedures, and these are fully aligned to the latest UK government guidelines to ensure that the continued health, safety and well-being of all of those who work on the project. So following this news, the work to select a house builder is well underway, and even with the COVID-19 situation, the council is receiving very positive comments from developers who are keen to partner the County Council in creating this new building and boosting the economy of the county, including Hucknall as well as the area which the planning authority is for, which is Gedling. So I'm going to propose we accept this item. Do I have a seconder, please?
Yes, I second the motion and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you very much. And now the matter is open for debate. Could I have speakers, please? Councillor Barnfather, Chris.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I welcome this report, and I think the importance of this as a strategic site, not only for Nottinghamshire County Council, but also for Gedling Borough Council, is reflected in the amount of additional funding from outside of our organisation that is being leveraged in to support this site being progressed. It's a site which, of course, has been on my radar since 2009 when I was first elected, and there are very mixed emotions in the local area as to the impact that it will have on the small conservation village next to it. But I think it's important that as the decisions have been made to move this forward, that we remove the uncertainty. So I'm not commenting in any way, shape or form on the actual planning application itself, the specifics of that, because as I've already said, I'll be a part of the planning committee that will be determining that. But in terms of the concept of moving this site forward, it's an exciting concept to create effectively a new garden village on the outskirts of Hucknall, albeit within the boundary of Gedling Borough, hopefully with a strong degree of self-sufficiency, but which will also have a significant economic impact for the good for Hucknall as an important economic and retail centre. So I welcome the paper before us. I welcome the investment. It's good to see that the 2 road junctions have now actually commenced off the 611 and that we're now able to progress the legal issues which will allow this to move forward positively by the end of this year. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Chris. Do I have any other speakers? David Martin. David, your hand's up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes. Yeah, it's a bit of a bone of contention for me. I like the site as a whole, and I do see the the self-containment of it. Again, Ashfield is at the behest of Gedling, where 106 money is concerned. I saw this happen before on Wigay Road when the last development was put in, and no 106 money came to Hucknall. Infrastructure was not increased or improved. It went to Bestwood Country Park. This time, there's been no commitment from Gedling Borough Council in the direction of 106 money to improve any of the infrastructure in Hucknall whatsoever. The financial gain for the town centre itself is great, but the adverse impacts are the impacts of the saturation of people that you are adding to the A611, which is already struggling through Annesley. So I'm hoping that a feasibility study will be upgraded for the bypass of Annesley. And also, I would like to see a feasibility study, just as we've seen at the expansion of the South Nottingham Academy. I'd also like to see a feasibility study done for Hucknall National, because this site will absorb the capacity at Holgate and Hucknall National as the other school, the new estates on the south side of the A611 have done. So, and again, I disagree entirely with building a new building inside what is basically a housing estate with a new primary school, when just up the road we've got buildings already there. That doesn't sit well with me. So there's something not quite right there. Why are we putting a brand new building in the middle of a housing estate? I would like an answer to that one, when the offices are already up on Sherwood Business Park, and the impact on the traffic and the people of Hucknall, as Councillor Wilmot will remember surely, when Papplewick Green was built, the impact on Hucknall was quite severe, and there were no infrastructure improvements other than roads, and that's my view on it. And this does affect all the people across the district of Ashfield, because we are the taxpayers of Ashfield and we are funding for that infrastructure in Hucknall as well.
But can I draw your attention to the papers in front of you on page 3 on the white papers? There's £10.3 million there to be invested on this already. That's accepting the 106 funding that may come this way. And I can't agree with you that providing jobs for people isn't a worthwhile thing to do, and within walking distance for many people and a short bus ride for others. As you currently know, we have a building for the County Council, 2 buildings that we rent on the Annesley Business Park, which are very tight spaces for parking. People have to drive there. So it's rather excluding those people from the society who don't have a car to get there. And the council has to pay a significant amount of money on every year on rent, over £400,000. Now, it seems to me good business to put a building which is convenient for people to get to without having to drive their car, to create a carbon neutral village, to stop paying a large amount of rent annually for a building where we have a site of our own, and also to offer sites for other people to put their buildings there as well, small and medium-sized enterprises, of which the county has many. And if we are to tackle the economy, which has shrunk considerably over the past few months when we've been in lockdown, we need to get out of this lockdown situation and get back to working again, to get back to building again, and get back to finding decent homes for people. We also have to take care of the environment as well. And anything which is going to be as carbon neutral as possible surely must be welcomed. And so I'm disappointed that you have taken such a negative view of this. And I'm quite sure that when we get started on that side, which we've already done with the road improvements, there will be a change of mind between all of you. As somebody said recently on another item, we have been in a situation where nobody wanted the new road round Hucknall, and now we've got it, they wouldn't go back again. And I suspect that will be the same for this one as well. So I think it is a good news story. Do I have any other speakers, please?
I did say, Councillor Cox, if I can come back.
Sorry, you've had your say. You said what you had to say. I've listened to you, I've replied to you, and now I'm moving on. This isn't a parish council or a district council, this is a county council, and the rules are everyone contributes to the debate, but it isn't a to and fro. We need to hear from everybody. Do I have any other speakers, please, who'd like to join this debate? Kevin, have you got your hand up? I can't quite see. You're muted. Yeah.
Yes, I'm unmuted, Kate. Yeah. I can see where Councillor Martin is coming from, and we've got to just dispel all these negative theories from the people, because at the moment the infrastructure in Hucknall is struggling. So we need to work with them rather than all the way and to start working with them and ensure that their fears are put to one side of how we're going about this, because it's a massive development, carbon neutral development, and it will be a good development in time. But the people locally in the likes of Limby, who struggled with traffic already, as Councillor Barnfather was saying, they are very concerned about what is going to happen. We're trying to keep people off the roads. One of the things that's come out of COVID is the people keeping off the roads and working from home. And in a lot of cases, this has worked. If we can keep work locally and to keep people off the road network, it's got to be a benefit. So let's watch this space and try and work together to achieve the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have other speakers, please? No, Reg, you seconded this. Would you like to make a contribution?
Yeah, I think I was talking to somebody yesterday who's fairly global and things around the UK, and they just said to me, "You're in Nottinghamshire and investing in Nottinghamshire and that big top wigway development you've got going, really does set the benchmark for what should be done and county councils and government should be doing for the future, especially to come out of COVID and develop the economy out of COVID." And I think here we're in the national terms and in other surrounding terms, we've got a project here that is the envy of quite a few other councils and other areas of how we've been able to develop it. And as you just said, there's sort of 8.8 million come in from outside already. So those people have taken a very, very positive view of it. And okay, there's always the NIMBYs, there's always going to be difficult. If somebody wants to put a house in my backyard, and I'm not going to be too happy about it, but it does happen. So I think we've got a very, very positive invest in Nottinghamshire especially coming out of COVID over the next couple of years. This is going to be very, very much the pound spent in Nottingham and the pound for the employment of Nottingham and for the people of Nottingham. And at the end of the day, we're going to have 800 houses in a carbon neutral situation.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for your contribution. Well, the recommendations are set out on page 3 of the white papers, and I will read them out on this since there has been some voice against it. That the committee considers the update in terms of delivery of the Top Wigway farm development, including highway infrastructure delivery, outline planning application, development selection progress, and additional grant funding secured, and decides if any further information is required. To authorise the corporate director of place in consultation with the group manager, legal, democratic and complaints, and the service director finance and infrastructure improvement, and the chair of the policy committee to approve the terms of the grant easement and any relevant contracts over third-party land for the recommended option as set out in the exempt report in this item. So you are now voting also on the exempt report of this item. So I'm going to now put it to the vote, and I'm going to ask the Chief Executive to call the vote, please. Chief Executive.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Adair.
4.
Councillor Barnfather.
4.
Councillor Butler.
4.
Councillor Cotty.
4.
Councillor Cutts.
4.
Councillor Fold.
4.
Councillor Garner.
4.
Councillor Guilfoyle.
4.
Councillor Harper.
4.
Councillor Jackson.
4.
Councillor Knight.
4.
Councillor Madden.
Abstain.
Councillor Martin.
Abstain.
Councillor Owen.
4.
Councillor Plant.
4.
Councillor Pringle.
4.
Councillor Rhodes.
4.
Councillor Rostance.
4.
Councillor Vice.
4.
So that's carried, Chair, but with 2 abstentions.
The agenda start again. Thank you for the debate there, and thank you, Chief Executive. You've announced the vote. That was with 2 abstentions, but for everybody else. I'm now going to move on to item 9, which is the Service Director and Customers Governance and Employers Work Programme. So this work programme sets out what we do as a committee for the rest of the year. So it's all set out there, and I'm going to ask anyone if they'd like to add anything to this work programme. There are some items which automatically put themselves on, but of course we can discuss anything you wish to. So are there any suggestions on this work programme? No. So David, I'm sorry. Yes, you've got your hand up.
Well, we'll be taking another look at the A611 bypass again.
To look at?
The A611 bypass through Ansley.
Well, again, you do know the rules. You can't debate an item for the second time within 6 months. Anybody else had any suggestions to say? No. I'll take the work programme then as it's set out before you, but it is, of course, a flexible document which can be added to. So thank you very much for that. May I say that concludes the public part of the agenda today. I'm going to read out the Local Government Act so people may understand exactly if they're viewing where we are with this. And item 10 on the agenda is to exclude the public, and the committee will be invited to resolve that the public be excluded for the remainder of the meeting on the grounds that the discussions are likely to involve disclosure of exempt information described in Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act of 1972, and the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. So all of those in favour of that, I'll take silence as an assent on this. Thank you very much. We're now into the closed part of the meeting.